So last week and the week before, we spoke about the God's divine utterances and His constant creation. We also spoke about the first step of creation, which was the withholding, the tzimtzum. We spoke at great length about the Kabbalistic doctrine of tzimtzum and how the first step in creation was actually not a positive act of creation, but an act of withdrawal. And we spoke about how in relationships in general and all that matters of life, withdrawal is always a very important thing, to move back a little bit and give the other person in the relationship a little bit space, which is always very important. And so God was the first one to start that by creating a space for the world. But today we're going to speak about a completely different thing, also tied in with creation. And that is about the creation of man. Okay, of man, of the human species. And we see that when God creates the human species, God consults with the angels, so to speak. Apparently, the angels were around already before the human species was around, right? And it says He consults with them, and He says, "Nasa Adam, let us make man to Museinu v'Tzalmeinu. Let us make God in our image, in our image." So this is a very important thing, that man was created in the image of God. So God says, "Okay, I'll create man," and He creates man in His image. Now, this is a very important thing of creating man in His image. Now, the sages speak about what is the most important concept in the whole Torah. So some say it's love your fellow like yourself. Others say it's belief in God. What is the greatest contribution of Judaism? And there are some rabbis that said, no, the greatest contribution of Judaism is that man is created in the image of God. Now, when you understand that, that means there is the whole creation, and the whole world is a creation of God, a very, very important creation of God. And we said every little leaf, every little plant, every sunrise, sunset is all God's handiwork. And we speak about the world, go around the world a little bit, you look at the world, wow, you say, this is a beautiful world that God created. Marabu Masecha Hashem. How manifold are your creations, O God. Magadlu Masecha Hashem. How deep is God's creation? So we marvel the universe. And spoke about the recent telescope that they sent into outer space. And you see the pictures they've come back with, and every incredible size of the universe. Every one of the dots in the picture is an entire universe, an entire galaxy. So there's millions and billions of those. so there's, the size of the universe is absolutely mind-boggling. The creations of God. So we see Hashem's handiwork in the creation, but nothing in creation does He actually say, let us make the creation in God's image. God, the world was created with the 10 utterances of God. God said, let there be light, let there be plants, it's created with the words of God. But the words are not necessarily your image, right? Image of God. And the rabbi said that this is the greatest possible contribution of the Torah, is the understanding that man, there is an aspect of the divine in the creation of man. Like, you can draw a painting of something very beautiful, but it's not you. But to create something in your image, that means it's very much like you. So the only creation where it says that about being God-like is the creation of man. And you should know that the great ethicists say this is such an important thing, to know that we are so noble that we were created in the image of God. And that is the bedrock of all of civilization, is the concept that, as the Torah says, V'halachta b'drachav, that we have to go in the ways of God because we're God-like. Right? So we have to copy God. God copied us in His creation. We are sort of clones of God in a way because we're saying we're in His image, right? So we're like His clones, right? Right. There once was a movie about someone that wanted to create clones of people, exactly of the perfect race. I think it was called The Boys of Brazil. So it was like they wanted to create, in a bad way over there, they wanted to create like the perfect Aryan race, so to speak, right? But we as Jews, we're not into that stuff. We're not trying to make ourselves better, but we're saying that humanity was created in the image of God, which teaches us that we need to be God-like. That's what the Torah says. V'halachta b'drachav. We have to go in the path of God. We have to be God-like in our ethics. As the Talmud says, Mahu chanun af ata chanun. Just like God is merciful, just like He is benevolent, so too you shall be benevolent. And the Maimonides goes in a very, very long explanation of this, that in everything, in every aspect of life, there is the divine way of doing things. And the divine way of doing things is the path of balance. You have the right path and the left path. You have both extremes, two extremes. And the divine path, the godlike path, the image of God path, in the Greeks also called it something. They called it imitatio deity or something, like to copy the divine, to be like God, godlike. And that is a secret in good quality living, is to be like God. What is God? God is balance. The Kabbalah speaks a lot about there are three paths. There is the right path, the left path, and the center path. There's the right column, the left column, and the center column. The center column is the one that is closest to the divine. It's a divine path. So in everything there is balance, and that's the middle path. Right. So you could be, let's say, in parenting. Take parenting for instance. You could be an all kind parent, right, and spoil your kid rotten. So it's wonderful to be kind. But if you give too much, then the children don't grow up well. They grow up to be spoiled brats, as they call them in English, right? So they grow up to be, not so balanced. And then you have the other side, the other extreme, is to be a strict parent. Right? You have some parents who choose, they want to discipline their kids, so they choose a path of discipline and strength, and that's the left column. So the right column, as we said, was the column of kindness to the children, which we said that has its shortcomings too, because if you go too kind, then there could be a great danger involved in that, because then they can get spoiled. On the other extreme, if you're too much of a disciplinarian, hey, that's not a good parenting either. Imagine a parent is just all day long telling the children not what to do, but what not to do, constantly admonishing them, criticizing them, and it breaks their self-esteem, it breaks who they are, and if the parent is too much of a disciplinarian, they might use brute force sometimes, and even not brute force. It could be a great stress on a child, right, to have a disciplinarian parent. And that also breaks the child. So that's the left extreme. So the right side is too kind. The left side is too much discipline. So none of those paths are really the real divine path. What is the divine path that the Rambam writes about? Maimonides writes about. He says always the middle path is where you see the divine, the ability to balance. God is to be divine-like, to be God-like, is knowing how to balance the two extremes and to move to the middle column. What's the middle column? The middle column is a parent that exercises some healthy kindness and also some limited discipline. And they know when to go from which side to the other. That's the middle path. The middle path is sometimes a child comes to you and says, so it's called rahmanut, mercy. The child comes to you and say, you're undeserving, Taka. You don't deserve it. But you're going to receive, just give me 1 second, please. Can you hear me again? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Yeah. Okay. I'm excited to see those thumbs today. Good. Okay. Let's go. Okay. Very good. So we're talking about God creating us in the image of God. And what does it mean to be in the image of God? That expresses itself in our behavior as well. It's not just that we're great. We're created in the image of God, right? Wow, yeah, hallelujah. We're godlike. No. That's a great. It comes with great power and great strength. It empowers us to know that we're created in the image of God. But like I said, the ethicists, people like the Rambam and others, they speak about that is actually a responsibility on our part. And the responsibility is, since we are created in the image of God, we need to conduct ourselves God-like. What does it mean to be God-like? I mean, no one knows what does it mean to be a God. No, be a God-like, the Rambam says, is to find the most perfect, balanced approach to everything in life. And God gave us that ability, and He demands of us. And that's what He says. V'halachta b'drachav. You shall live like you are God, like you are a piece of God, like you are created in the image of God. You must go in His paths. Just like He is merciful, you should be merciful. Just like He is benevolent, you should be benevolent. And like we explained it to a greater degree, that in every character trait, the Rambam writes, there is a way of being God-like. Like I said, it's finding balance. For instance, how you deal with your money. You can be a chazer, or you can be God-like. Like so. Some people have a tendency of being very, very stingy. They don't give out a penny. They hold on to their money till the day they die. And then you have some people who are very spendthrift. They spend their money like crazy. They go on a shopping spree, and they give away all their money. Well, the same thing is also in charity. Also, you find that some people are very stingy in giving charity, and other people give a lot of charity. What is the right path? To be stingy or to be spendthrift? So both of them are extremes. Maybe stingy is good because then you always have you're smart. You put away your money for a rainy day. That there's a wisdom in that, but there also is a very very bad side to it, that you're not a member of the community. You're not giving. You're not helping. Hashem gave you the money not to hold on to it and die with it, but to give it out. Then you have the person that's very, very kind, charitable, give away everything they have. That's also there's a good thing about that. But then also the Talmud says a person should aliyah vazves, a person shouldn't give away more than a fifth of what they have. Even if you're very charitable, it says don't give away more than a fifth, because you need for your family, for your children, for yourself. You need to be economically sound, right? So Hashem gives you, don't throw it away. Give some to charity, but don't. So what is the balance? Should a person be stingy or spendthrift? And the answer is somewhere in between. Right? And that's the godlike way. to give a lot, but also to save a lot. So you have to make a balance between the two conducts. In every character trait, the truth is in the middle path. The truth is in balance, not too much to the right, not too much to the left, to be somewhere right, be'emtza, in the middle. That's where emes is. The word emes, truth, which is godlike, is the middle path. Give a look at the word emes. The word for truth is a Hebrew word, very beautiful Hebrew word. We know the word for truth in Hebrew is the word emet. What does the word emet mean? Emet means truth, but if you give a look at the etymological makeup of the word, in the Hebrew, the letters, as we learned last week, 2 weeks ago, are very, very significant. Emes, truth, is made up of 3 letters. We all know the Hebrew alphabet, right? Goes from the letter Aleph until Taf. So the 3 letters of the word Emet, Aleph, Mem, Taf. So Aleph and Taf is like A to Z. Right? Aleph, Taf, A to Z, right? Aleph is the first letter of truth. Taf is the final letter of truth, right? That's A and Z in the English language equivalent, right? So the word Emet, you have the first letter of Emet is the beginning of the alphabet, and the last letter is the end of the alphabet. What is the middle letter of Emet? Is Mem. If you give a look carefully in the Hebrew alphabet, you will see there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, or if you count the long letters, the final letters is 26. So if you go exactly at the midpoint of the Hebrew alphabet, you will find that the letter that is right at the midpoint is the letter Mem. Mem is for middle. Mem is the middle letter of the Hebrew alphabet. In fact, the word Mem is Mem Mem. Right? It's 2 mems. That's how you spell it. The letter Mem, M-E-M. Right? M. So it really represents the middle ground. So if you want to know what is Emet, what is truth in Judaism, what is the true way of God, the divine way, the way of being created in the image of God, is finding balance. A to Z, Aleph to Taf, but the Mem goes right in the middle. That's the middle column. Not to the right, not to the left, but smack in the middle, finding the middle way. Right? Middle doesn't necessarily mean always compromise. Right? Many times it has a degree of compromise to it. The compromise usually people look at as a sign of weakness, right? When you're watering down something, it's a sign of weakness. People always say, "Let's go. I'm a middle of the road Jew. I don't do so much. I'm like a middle of the road." People say that a lot of times. People like to say, "I'm just a middle. I'm in the middle. I'm not here. I'm not there." That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about compromise as a weakness, as because you can't make up your mind, right? Sometimes people, they just don't know which way to go, so they just like float in the middle somewhere, right? That's like watered down Judaism, like, what are you? Whatever. I do a little bit, a little bit. I don't do too much. I don't do too little. I'm in the middle of the road. That's a weakness. That's a compromise. Right? We're talking here about emet, like I'm saying now. It's a conscious decision when you recognize that to the right is not perfect, to the left is not perfect, but the center is the blend. So let's look at it like 2 colors. You take 2 colors and you bring them together and you create a 3rd dimension by mixing those 2 colors together. You don't go to one color, no, you take the 2 colors. It's called, in Kabbalah, it speaks about the middle column as being the column of Tiferet. Tiferet is beauty. Beauty. And that's what's God-like. It's like beautiful. It's beautiful when you're able to take the 2 extremes and to be a balanced person. Speaking about all the different character traits of being in the image of God and going in his path. His path, his ways are taking every character trait and trying to find the middle road. So let's say something like anger management. Right? It takes something like that. Yeah, being an angry person, being everything you get all excited about, is not such a healthy thing, right? It's not so healthy to be an angry person. Everyone will agree to that. Right? But at the same time, you have some people that are calm, like nothing bothers them. They don't let anything bother them. They're just like, oh, it's like the whole life is like mamish, like just nothing bothers them. So sometimes you have that between husbands and wives. They have the same disagreement. One is like, a koch level, and the other one is like calming. And sometimes in marriage that's actually good to have one that's a little bit more koch level, a little bit more excitable, and the other one is calm. But overall, which is the right path? To be totally excitable, emotional, or to be totally calm? What's the divine path? What is the divine way? What is the right way? What is the emet over here? What is the middle path? So we say the middle path is to get excited about some things, but it has to be mind over matter. It has to be a balance. We create a balance that we are excited about the things that are worthy to be excited about, and we don't lose our mind over nonsensical, petty things. Right? Again, it's the balance of that quality, the balance of being over emotional, over excitable, or being totally not excited about anything. Same thing is with ego. I'm just going through all the character traits, but every one of them, the middle column, that is going in God's path. That's what God says. Follow my path, be like me. What does it mean, be like me, like God? It's finding the perfect balance. God is the most balanced possible in creating a balance in the cosmos, in the systems, in the solar system, creating balance in everything, and every trait. That is the perfection of everything. The Greeks spoke a lot about it. Also, the Greeks they were into creating perfect balance in their character traits. But the Greek approach was just based on human knowledge. As Jews, we also have the Torah, which teaches us how to go about this. So take, for instance, ego. Right? You have some people that are full of themselves, are blown up, everything. They're always. Just give me one second over here. No. People that are sometimes disgusting in the way that they're so full of themselves, always talk about themselves, everything is themselves, right? That's called ego.
Specialist, Rabbi.
Huh?
Eye specialist.
Eye specialist?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Eye this, eye that.
Oh, sorry. Hey, very good. I like that, Eddie. Excellent. Eye specialists. They're always about eye. Everything about themselves. They're always talking about. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to use that, Eddie. Thanks. So they're always concerned about themselves. And then you have the other. That's the one extreme. And then the other extreme is a person who's so humble. They're so humble that like you can they're like a doormat. You could run them right over. They don't have any ego whatsoever. So on the one hand, the egotist is the one extreme, and the humble man, the complete humble man, on the other side, right? Which was, by the way, ego. They used to say ego is an abbreviation. You know what it stands for? Ego, to edge God out. Edge God out. That's what ego is. Ego is a person that's definitely not divine. There's nothing divine about it. Ego to edge God out. EGO. Right? Push God out in his life because it's all about I, like you say, I specialist. So they're always about, that's egotist. On the other extreme, we have the humble mumble, right? The doormat persona, which they let everybody trample all over them. They don't want to make waves. They don't make anything. And that's another extreme, which is not healthy, not good. Well, what is the divine way? Is the middle path. That means, in general, you should be a humble person, walk humbly before God. But when it comes to matters of importance, important matters, not for yourself, but for your family and for your community and for others and for your values, over there you're strong. So you're not an egotist about yourself, not about I, but about you are strong for things which are important. So again, here you have the balance. It's like it says the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. So they asked the question, why a Mount Sinai? Because it was the lowest of the mountains to teach us humility. So they ask, if it's the lowest of the mountains, why wasn't it given in a valley? A valley would have been a greater form of humility. The Torah should have been given a very low place. And the answer is no, because it's not good to be completely humble. The Torah teaches us that we have to be humble on the one hand, but on the other hand, we also have to have pride, that we're proud of who we are. If we're proud of our Jewishness, if we're proud of our community, ourselves, that's a very, very important thing to have. So I'm just going through all the different character traits to show us that God says, be like me. It says, V'halachta b'drachav, go in the ways. What's the ways of God? Obviously, the 613 mitzvot that God teaches us, but also in our character has to be one which is godlike, which is balanced. So that's the first thing that Hashem says at the very beginning of creation. He says He creates man, He creates the human being, and He teaches him that where does man come from? Man comes from, God said to the angels, let us make God in our image. So when the rabbis were speaking about what is the greatest quality, it's knowing that a human being is created in the image of God. It's also, so as we said, one of the very important things is not just to feel great about ourselves, that we created the image of God, but it's how we conduct ourselves. And the Mitzvah Shem next week, we're going to continue on this subject, and we're going to learn a little bit more about how this concept of being created in the image of God gives us a different way of looking at the human being, at our bodies, at our souls. And we're going to go next week a little bit more into the Kabbalistic depth of this idea of man being created in the image of God. So we wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom and all the best. Anybody have any questions today on our class?
No questions, but it's so true. Sometimes you call someone just to say hello, be nice and kind, and see how your mother is doing and everything else. And right away, I bought this, I just went there, I just came, hello. I was the one that called you. Anyway, it's so annoying. And you just stand there and like, why did I call? I know this person.
Yeah. So what's important is like, but at the same time, it's also important, to assert yourself a little bit too at times. You know what I mean? It's there are times where we need to be strong, and not to be just humble. So this friend or whoever it is only thinking about themselves. But you have to think about the other person and also think about yourself. Not to forget about yourself. You have some people that are so altruistic that they forget about themselves, they forget about their families. So we need, like I say, a healthy balance, a healthy emet, the aleph, the mem, the taf, the two extremes, but the middle path is the most important. Okay? Is that good?
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Bye, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you very much.